Welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. Real stories, real science, and a little fun along the way. Today's part 3 of our 4-part series on the Grift, the rise of celebrity medicine. Today we'll unpack why big credentials feel so convincing, how authority bias works, and what happens when miracle language meets weak evidence. We'll break down Dr. Oz and Dr. Gundry as two versions of the same playbook and give you 5 quick questions to vet any health pitch. Plus, what to do instead that actually moves A1C, weight, and energy. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Diabetes Podcast. I'm Richie.
And I'm Amber.
And Amber, today is part 3 of our 4-part series. We're over halfway there.
Woo.
Today we are going to be talking about the rise of celebrity medicine.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But a doctor said it. Yes. So it's really interesting to me that when we did part 2 on supplements, a friend of mine said, well, what happens when the doctor is recommending the supplement, and there's all that credibility behind it. Like I get it. A supplement company, this big business, doesn't care about people, but a doctor that I've seen on YouTube that has 1.5 million plus subscribers, like, why would they do this? Why, like, they took an oath to help people. Like, why would they do this?
Interestingly enough, the same week that we did part 2, a lady that we're working with told me that her daughter was put on cinnamon by her pediatrician. like here's a prescription for cinnamon. So there's just a lot of confusion.
It's sad. Yeah. It's sad. So that's really the thing that we're sitting with today is like, why are physicians, not all of them, I shouldn't say why do some physicians do this? Like, what is going on here? And just kind of sit with it. And I don't like calling out people, and this isn't to be confrontational. It's because the 2 people that the 2 doctors we're specifically referring to today are great examples of like 2 types of physicians, 2 ways that this could occur. And these are 2 really big examples. Like, they're probably the best known, the most money from supplements and different paid things. So it's a good kind of examination tool with these individuals. So we really want to talk about the version of health marketing in America that doesn't come from these faceless supplement companies, but the face of a trusted physician. People who performed open heart surgery, people who published research, people who appeared on network television with the full weight of that degree and credentials and the institution that they went to school, like all of that reputation behind them. So when one of them looks in the camera and says, this supplement changed my patients' lives, that's really compelling. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. So we're going to just kind of break that apart today. So when that person's selling you the supplement is the doctor, what does that look like when you involve commercial influence? So why do the credentials matter so much? And that is because of authority bias. So authority bias describes our tendency to attribute greater accuracy and trustworthiness to the opinions of authority figures, regardless of whether the specific claim falls within their area of expertise. So it's not a character flaw that people have. It's a cognitive shortcut that usually serves us very well. If a structural engineer tells you the bridge is unsafe, you listen. If a pilot tells you fasten your seatbelts. Hopefully you listen, you put your seatbelts on in turbulence. So, because in most situations, that expertise is earned and relevant and serves us well to listen. And medicine carries this even higher, sometimes this unusually high level of authority bias. And there's good reason for that, because becoming a physician requires an undergraduate degree, 4 years of medical school, 3 to 7 years of residency, sometimes another 2-year or so fellowship training on top of that, board certification, continuing education. So that pipeline filters for intelligence, for sure, discipline, sustained commitment. And when someone survives that pipeline, which is not insignificant, that's a lot of years and dedication of your life and financial resources, we grant them this very deep reservoir of trust. And we should, in the right context, that trust is very well placed. But here's where the mechanism breaks down. Authority bias doesn't distinguish between domains of expertise. So a cardiothoracic surgeon has genuine, hard-won expertise in cardiac surgery. That expertise doesn't automatically extend to nutritional biochemistry. And these are things that we see often. Doesn't extend to gut microbiology or endocrinology or clinical evidence for dietary supplements. But authority bias doesn't say, oh, wait, that's not the same. It doesn't have those same boundaries. In the public mind, doctor is a single category, and it means all of health, full stop. And that's where celebrity doctors operate inside of that gap that's there, the space between what they're credentialed in and what the public assumes that they're credentialed in. And that gap is where the selling and the commercial stuff comes in. So I'm going to add a layer that also ties into the Grift part 2 that we've done. And when we talked about that formula within a supplement ad, the authority disruption. So it's like the doctors won't tell you, they dismiss your doctor and they're like, we're the credible ones. Well, celebrity doctors don't need that. They have all of the authority already. When a doctor has 12 million YouTube subscribers and is given this huge platform on Oprah or the show The Doctors, that is like, well, surely they know what they're talking about, or they wouldn't have this platform. And I would love to believe that it was true that you would be given a platform like that on merit alone. But we're seeing more and more, especially these days. I mean, anybody can podcast. I mean, I hate to say we're podcasting. We
are evidence that anybody can podcast.
Right. Look at us.
They're just giving these things away.
Right? This microphone showed up at my door. I'm like, we got a podcast.
I guess we got to do a podcast now.
Jeez. Oh my goodness. So yeah, we're going to get into Dr. Oz and Dr. Gundry specifically now. So Dr. Mehmet Oz is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, completed his residency at Columbia. What a dump. He became the director.
Nothing but Ivy League for that guy.
He became the director of the Cardiovascular Institute at Columbia University Medical Center. He performed heart transplants. He published peer-reviewed research in legitimate journals. And I'm telling you this not to rehabilitate him, but because it's essential in understanding why he was so effective. His medical credentials, his pedigree, if you will, was there, Surgical skills were real. I bought his book back in the day. Judah was a baby, so we're talking like 2007 or 8 timeline. He wrote an amazing book on cholesterol, and he had a lot of cartoons within it. So it was just, I thought, a very good way that I would use with patients. Sometimes in diabetes education, I would show them like different different ways so that they could understand their lab results better. And it was amazing. I thought he did a really good job of conveying education to the public through his books. So, I mean, I really enjoyed Dr. Oz until I didn't. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it just really made it so powerful when he rose through the ranks, if you will. I don't know, when he came to more public fame, but also more dangerous. Even for me, it was problematic because he had this high reputation with me until he didn't. So in 2004, he began appearing regularly on the Oprah Winfrey Show as a health expert. In 2009, this is where it got a little sketch because our book was in 2007 or 8 that I bought. In 2009, he launched the Dr. Oz show. And for the next decade, he became arguably the most influential health communicator in America. Millions of viewers, daily episodes, constant supplement recommendations. And I did, my blood pressure. I did nutrition counseling, worked for the Diabetes Center of Excellence at Shands, University of Florida, and nearly every day, nearly a couple times a day, usually, I would hear, well, Dr. Oz said, and it was just like, oh boy. And I would spend a third of their visit time explaining why no, Garcinia kombucha is not going to be all that you need to do to improve your 12A1C, and it was so frustrating because there were real issues that we could work on together, but I had to help them see why it wasn't this before I could help them find any other look towards anything else. You have to address what somebody comes to you with before they will open up and listen to you. You have to establish trust. You have to listen. People have to feel heard before you can then go into anything else. So it really was disruptive. And you can ask any of my colleagues at that time. We were all fit to be tied. And even to this day, I'm less in one-on-one counseling these days, but I still hear it from my registered dietitian peers that there's, and we're talking, that was 2010 and now we're in 2026. This has been going on. And it is like, I want to know how many hours it has disrupted in true clinical conversations and moving the needle forward, opportunity cost, So, so on the show, he promoted a rotating cast of supplements in language that was extraordinary for someone with his training, like extraordinary, not in a good way. He described green coffee bean extract as a, quote, miracle fat burner. He called Garcinia kombucha a, quote, revolutionary fat buster. He promoted raspberry ketones as a weight loss breakthrough. He used phrases like magic, miracle, and the answer. So here's poor little me coming in, seeing my patient who was newly diagnosed with diabetes, whose doctor has told that they need insulin. And then they watched Dr. Oz that said, no, this is the miracle cure. So what are you going to choose, insulin or the miracle cure? I mean, hello, you're going to choose the miracle cure because Dr. Oz said.
And it's not a shot.
Oh, yeah. Because grandma went on insulin and she died when she started insulin. Because there's no context. There's no context for the fact that that person waited too long to be put on a medicine that they needed, perhaps. And then when things were too late, then they started insulin and passed away. Anyway, so let's measure all those claims, magic, miracle cure, the answer, against what we covered in part 1 of the Grift. Green coffee bean extract has been studied in multiple trials. A 2011 Cochrane review found the evidence was of low quality and the effects were small and inconsistent. The most cited study, which is the study that Dr. Oz referenced, was later retracted due to data concerns. Garcinia cambogia, as we discussed, has essentially no meaningful effect on body weight in numerous rigorous trials. Raspberry ketones has almost no human data at all. Even when Dr. Oz promoted them, the evidence was primarily from rodent studies using doses that would be impractical in humans. So these are not marginal supplements that might have modest effects. These are supplements that don't work by any reasonable metric at all. Do not work. And they were being promoted by one of the most credentialed, most highly esteemed physicians in the country. A show watched by millions of people, many who were living with obesity, type 2 diabetes, or metabolic syndrome or prediabetes. So then there was a moment in 2014 where Dr. Oz was called before to attend a Senate committee meeting hearing. And this was one of the most revealing exchanges in health-based media. Dr. Oz was called before this U.S. Senate subcommittee. This was on Consumer Protection Committee, and Senator Claire McCaskill, who chaired the hearing, was direct. She told Oz that his show had become a platform for supplements that didn't have the scientific evidence to back the claims that he was marketing. And do you know what he said in response?
The money, though.
That would have been the most truthful thing that he possibly could have said. But he acknowledged under oath that some of his language had been, quote unquote, flowery. He said that the supplements he promoted would not pass FDA scrutiny. He essentially conceded that his on-air claims went beyond what the evidence supported. But then, we got to back it up. He said he believed in the supplements as part of a lifestyle approach. He said he was trying to be a, quote, cheerleader for his audience. And
it's part of a balanced breakfast, Amber.
And he argued that his show was there to give people hope. So I want to sit there for a moment, too, because we discussed this in part 2 of the Grift. Do you remember?
I don't remember what you're leading into.
Well, I'm not leading into anything. I mean, do you remember that the formula that this...
Oh, it was a 7-part, that bit?
Yes.
I don't remember the 7 parts.
Well, I don't remember like specifically either, but it had to do with that compassion frame. It's the part of, it feels really well intended. I was giving you hope. I was a cheerleader.
I'm going to give you some guidance for future reference. We do a lot of these things here, and audience, full disclosure, like I don't remember a lot of it, and I produce this show. So if there's specific responses that you want,
I don't want anything. I'm just curious.
I'm going to need a little bit of prep time on that. Now you know. In one ear, out the other. That's pretty much where we're at.
Well, good thing it's recorded.
That's right, and I get to listen to it again.
Yes, and again, and again. Oh my gosh! So let's go back. So when you attach hope to an ineffective product, is it really hope? Maybe you could argue that it is. I hope my wallet stays with my money. It's a different kind of hope. But it's really that delay, that opportunity cost that we talked about. That's what is missing. Every viewer that bought that green coffee bean extract because Dr. Oz called it a miracle was a viewer who did not spend that time, money, energy, attention, emotional investment on something that actually works. And when it didn't work, as it predictably would not work, many of those viewers, and that was the other part of part 2, blamed themselves, that emotional toll that came in. So Dr. Oz gave people hope. The hope didn't work, and people paid the cost because the doctor said it would work. So surely it's me, So, gonna be a little bit fair. I don't know if that's the right word, but to the credit of that show as someone who comes up with the content for these podcasts week after week. Well, every other week because we have guests, the other one. That show was every single day. Mm-hmm. That show was new, interesting content every single day. So like 40 episodes a year. Wait, that's not right. 40 plus weeks a year, 5 days a week. So I don't know how many episodes that is. That's way more than we have.
40
weeks times 5. So
That's
40,
200.
120. Yeah.
200.
200. I can't do math on the fly.
See? It's not easy.
I'm like, I'm not a bad for word. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, boy. Yes, there is something to be put on the spot. I apologize.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No problem.
Okay. But when you have a show like that, you need novelty, you need hooks. You got to grab the viewer and pull them in.
Yeah, but to some degree, the problem you have with that is the same problem you have with cable news. There really isn't that much stuff going on at any one time. So you got to kind of overinflate the stuff and really, really harp on the stuff when it shows up. And as a result, like stuff that needs attention just gets lost in the noise around a bunch of stuff that really doesn't matter, but it was a slow news day.
That's exactly right. Like there's no way there are enough legitimate evidence-based health breakthroughs to fill every single day.
Not 5 a week and not 40 weeks out of the year.
Exactly. Because real science moves slowly. Studies take years. Findings are incremental. A genuinely responsible health show would repeat the same core messages. I don't know who does that. Eat more fiber, move your body, sleep more, manage stress, take your medication as prescribed over and over. I feel like we're de-advertising our podcast.
Well, I would say based off the viewer numbers, there probably is something to what Oz was doing.
He's got a few more viewers.
We might have it wrong.
That's why we do every other week. It's not compelling television. All right. So I think we've agreed the show needed supplements. You got to boost it up a little. It needed superfoods.
And you can stop me if you're going to get into it. But factually, I know that, and I'm gonna call them out because you've given them grief before. The AG1, the greens, right? Mm-hmm. There's a reason that they say use code blah, 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 use code Oz for whatever, because when you use that code, at least the AG1's agreement with celebrity endorsers is 20% of the sales with that code are going directly to the person that's endorsing that. So if you tell me that, let's just use that example, right? Stuff's going for $90 to $100 a bottle, and I've got 12 million people listening to this thing, and let's just say 10% of those are going to listen to it. You can start doing the math. There is a tremendous, ungodly amount of money to be made on every single episode, specifically from commission on sales of those supplements. Now, I don't know.
Mentioned before that the supplement industry is a multi-trillion. So like if you include like all of wellness, you get into the trillions. But if you just talk about supplement companies, supplement specifically, it's the billions.
Yeah.
The billions.
But even, I don't know what I would do if I were subjected to that kind of money.
I know what you would do if you wanted to stay married. Your face. Oh, you're just trading me.
But I'd think about it.
Oh, jeez. Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
The opportunity for corruption increases exponentially when there's that kind of money being thrown at you not even every single week,
too
every
far
single
to see
day.
that in politics. But anyway, yeah. So
And ultimately ended up getting into politics. So there you go.
There you go. So really, it's just that consistent novelty, having to come up with that novelty every show is going to be fundamentally against sound science. It's going to be incompatible with evidence-based medicine. Just is what it is. And that's the structural problem underneath the personal one. And it's the same structural problem that drives the YouTube ecosystem we're about to discuss. Here we go. Dr. Gundry, the Lectin narrative and supplement empire. So different structural model, but the same sort of mechanism going on. Stephen Gundry, a former cardiac surgeon who trained at the University of Michigan and practiced at Loma Linda University Medical Center. Like Oz, his surgical credentials are real. He performed pediatric heart transplants. Like, I don't know anything more noble than that. He published research. In 2008, he pivoted. He published The Plant Paradox, which argued that lectins, which are proteins found in many common foods like beans, greens, tomatoes, peppers, not potatoes, were a primary driver of inflammation, autoimmune disease, weight gain, and a wide range of chronic conditions. And then he built a supplement company. So, like, why get paid by the supplement company when you can just build your own? And the supplement company is Gundry MD. It sells a product line that includes, I want you to listen to these names really well. Vital Reds, Primal Plants. I just think of Plants versus Zombies when I hear Primal Plants. BioComplete 3, Total Restore. The flagship product was that Total Restore is marketed as a gut lining support formula. Many of these products retail somewhere between $50 to $70 per bottle, and bundles of different products together can run into the hundreds. But here's what distinguishes Gundry from Oz and makes this model important to understand. Gundry's primary marketing channel is YouTube, and his YouTube ads are some of the most sophisticated examples of medical authority being converted into commercial persuasion that existed. So very much like part 2 that we just did, like his ads have every single one of those steps. Every single one he taps into within his ads. So if you've spent any time watching any kind of health content on YouTube, good luck to you if you don't get a Gundry supplement ad pop in somewhere in there as you're watching it. They're long, usually 5 to 15 minutes. They're designed to look like educational content. So a lot of them are those little sketches where they draw the whole time and you're sitting there reading and drawing. And it's like pulling, and then you're like, well, I'm invested. I want to see how this ends. And they follow that very specific structure. So we'll go through that same framework from episode 2. Go do the 7 steps. I'm joking. Oh. So it's almost exact, but there's a critical difference in there. So they've got the symptom net. Mm-hmm. Gundry's ads open with that very same broad, wide net of relatable symptoms: fatigue, brain fog,
Do you
bloating,
have occasional trouble sleeping?
Wide net, maximum identification with people. And then comes in the hidden villain. Here, it's always lectins not always, it's almost always lectins with Dr. Gundry. Lectins are the parasites of the Gundry universe, the single hidden cause that explains everything. The foods you think are healthy are destroying your gut. Then you have this emotional release, but it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You've been told your whole life that you listened to the diabetes podcast and you were told that beans were good for you, that you needed fiber. It's not your fault. You're listening to that podcast. Same kind of move going on there.
You fell victim to their non-existent marketing.
I'm telling you. And then step 4 is where it changes some from that parasite ad that we did. So, the authority disruption was what came in that one. Your doctor doesn't know about this, but Dr. Gundry is that authority. He's standing there in a blazer. Sometimes he's got his stethoscope on, bookshelves behind him, credentials hanging on the wall.
Was he listening for the lectins? That's what he was doing with the stethoscope?
He doesn't. He's just there in case he needs to hear your heart and do a heart transplant. He doesn't disrupt authority. He is the authority. He embodies that authority, which makes these next steps land with so much more force. The science language. He uses terms like zonulin, lipopolysaccharides, tight junction integrity, mitochondrial uncoupling. These are real biological concepts, and that's what we talked about in our part 2 as well. They're published in real journals, and Gundry, because of his training, can discuss them quite fluently. And the viewer watches him and thinks, this person clearly understands the science. And at a terminology level, he does. The issue isn't whether he knows the words. The issue is whether the conclusions he draws from them and the products he sells based on those conclusions are supported by evidence-based medicine and that weight of clinical evidence. Then you have the miracle ingredient, which is always a secret proprietary blend. Can't tell you what it is. We'd have to kill you. A unique formulation, something you can only get from Gundry MD. This is where the educational content becomes a sales funnel. And then you have the urgency close. Subscribe and save, limited time offer, bundle discount. You got to have this one to really make this one work the most effective and have this one. Same formula, same steps that we outlined in part 2, but wrapped in genuine medical credentials and delivered with the polish of someone who understands both the science and the audience at a deep level and has his own company that he needs to fund, or he needs to fund him. So let's talk about the lectin claim and measure it against the evidence. So let's address this lectin argument because it is very central to his entire theme of his supplements and a lot of people ask about this. I mean, several million YouTube subscribers, people are seeing these. They're sending them to me. They're sending them to other dietitians. They're taking them to their doctor. So lectins are real proteins. They exist in beans, lentils, whole grains, nightshade vegetables, and other foods. In raw or improperly prepared form, some lectins, particularly phytohemagglutinin in raw kidney beans. Remember that time I made the white kidney beans and I made you take them up to a high temperature first and then bring them back down before you?
Amber, I don't even remember what the 7 things were, and we just did that.
Okay. Anyway, white kidney beans
I'm
are
running on
notoriously...
pure RAM right now. If I don't need
Remember
to
that time
retain
I had to
it,
cook beans and you had to go and up and down. Anyway, don't eat raw kidney beans, especially not white raw kidney beans, because they can cause genuine gastrointestinal distress. This is established science. Like, you don't need a Gundry 12-minute cartoon lecture to get this. You just cook your beans, okay? But here's what the broader evidence actually shows. Cooking destroys the vast majority of dietary lectins. Boiling beans for 10 minutes eliminates phytohemagglutinin almost entirely. Pressure cooking is even more effective. That's what I had to do.
51 minutes, set it and forget it.
The lectins in properly prepared foods are present at levels that are biologically negligible. And the populations that eat the most lectin-containing foods, the blues, have we heard of blue zone populations.
That we did. That
perhaps?
was our last episode, and I do remember that.
You do remember it. The Mediterranean diet adherents, the people who follow the Mediterranean diet.
What university did you say he went to for his MD?
Who?
Gundry. I'm pretty sure it's one of the blue zones.
Oh, okay. I mean, no one's questioning his education. Oh, that was Loma Linda. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Communities with high legume ancestor beans consistently show better metabolic outcomes, not worse. Lower rates of type 2 diabetes, lower cardiovascular disease, longer lifespans. The epidemiological evidence runs directly counter to the claim that lectins are a primary driver of chronic disease. Major diabetes and nutrition research organizations, the American Diabetes Association, the American Dietetics Association, the American Heart Association, World Health Organization consistently recommend legumes, whole grains, and many of the foods Gundry warns against.
And yet we still get none of that wonderful bean money. I don't know how every day we can, or every podcast, we can just beat this drum of more beans in the diet, and have yet
more
to see
beans.
a single cent.
Yep. We're talking about decades of observational and interventional data. So we have a situation where a credentialed physician is making claims that contradict the weight of evidence from his own field and then selling supplements as the solution to the problem he's described. So I'm going to make another observation about the Gundry model because it illustrates something important about how celebrity medicine monetizes. Gundry's supplements are not cheap. A month's supply of his recommended products can easily run $150 to $300. And I have personally talked to several people who pay $300 a month for their supplements, and it's usually this Gundry stack of supplements. And the marketing strongly implies that you need multiple products. One for your gut, one for your energy, one for your polyphenols. I know where you can get polyphenols better than that. One for your mitochondria. The product line expands to fill the problem in the space that they created, their content that they created. So it's a business model where the content creates the demand and the products fulfill it. So you didn't even know you had a problem, but I have the cure for the problem that you didn't know until you watched that 12-minute video that you had. You know,
I just found out that I've got parasites, and now I got this lectin thing I got to deal with.
Yeah. No more nightshades for you, sir. None. And they create fear around commonly eaten foods, but offer a proprietary solution to this. So the content and the commerce are not separate, and that's where the problem really lies. They are the same system. And the PhD level terms, the citations to published papers, the surgical credentials, they all function in that context, like the money laundering, the context laundering. And the legitimacy of those credentials make the commercial recommendation feel like medical advice. Like you see, it's the research is cited. You go to that research, it talks about lectins and hemagglutinin, and you're like, I don't know what this is, but like the research is there, so you think that it associates, and it doesn't. Like, yeah, if you eat white kidney beans without cooking them, prepare to be ill. But that has nothing to do with anything you need a Dr. Gundry supplement for. So just talk about the broader ecosystem of this. So you got Oz and Gundry, the most prominent examples, but they are not alone. There's a growing ecosystem of the same, rewind play of health professionals, some doctors, some chiropractors, some with PhDs, some with naturopathic certifications. They operate on this same model where the content creates the problem. Supplements solve it. Credentials make it credible. And I'm going to just mention some themes and some more problems that I see across this ecosystem, because I really want to help people recognize it and see the dynamic regardless of who's doing it. So if it's not a Gundry ad or Dr. Oz, how do I know then if it's something that to pay attention to? So usually you have this credential mismatch when we talked about the bias that we give to physicians and to any credible resource. One of the most common that I see is leveraging credential in one field to speak authoritatively about another field. Like, I do not recommend that anybody who knows me or listens to this podcast or anything, if you need open heart surgery, I am not your gal. That is not me. I know a lot about.
I'll give it a try.
No, sir. I will not do it.
I can get it out.
No. No. I can help keep you from having that surgery where they might need to operate on your heart. We can talk about
likelihood
that.
Of you ever having to have open
but
heart
I'm
surgery.
not going to perform that surgery. Not in a million years. No, sir.
If you're bleeding from your neck, you can put a tourniquet on it.
Shut up. I love you. Be quiet. No. So when you get medical training, you do get foundational science classes. We all took anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, but the depth of knowledge that's required to make clinical claims about the gut microbiome's role in type 2 diabetes comes from years of specialized training and ongoing engagement with the primary literature in endocrinology, gastroenterology, and metabolic science. Being a doctor doesn't mean you're an expert in everything health related, but the public doesn't draw that distinction again. So then you've got a publication pivot where like I was mentioning with Dr. Gundry's stuff, you've got your publication there linked to that, but it really doesn't talk about the claim that you're making or that the supplement fixes it, or there's a relationship there, but not a causal link to that. And so if you've got these past publications by that, or even by like Dr. Gundry and Dr. Oz had published research publications in the past, but they were on cardiothoracic surgery, or they weren't about this particular supplement. So it's just transformation that doesn't happen. Then we have the testimonial ecosystem. And, we've done testimonials before, and they are compelling. That's the reason that we do them. But I always have some hesitancy in that, because I understand that just because this person got these results everything about their situation is different. It's never going
to be apples to apples.
It's never the same thing for anyone. So, and then there's lighting and what they're wearing and so many other things that come into play as well. And weight can fluctuate. You can gain and lose across time with different things going on. But celebrity doctors cultivate these testimonials the way that traditional advertising cultivates endorsements. Patient stories, transformation photos, comments sections filled with "this changed my life."
Probably a results not typical in very small letters at the bottom at some point in there. And
that social proof that these people had success is extraordinarily persuasive. But they're not evidence, they're anecdotes. And they're not just anecdotes, they're very filtered and highly curated anecdotes. And that's the lowest level of evidence, is these anecdotal based things. So in a rigorous clinical trial, you control for all of these things. You're going to control for, was that person a smoker or were they not? But was that person influenced by this or were they not? Like, there's so many confounding variables that are not taken into consideration with these testimonials. And then we have the false dichotomy that can exist. And this is probably the most damaging pattern of all. Celebrity health content frequently frames this choice as pharmaceutical medicine, which is depicted as profit-driven. And it is a business, side effect laden. And that's because anytime a pharmaceutical product comes to market or advertises that product, They have to have what's called fair balance, where they say, these are all the benefits of this medicine, but then this is all the side effects. And you have to give equal time in your commercial to each of those. So even if it's a side effect that happens to 0.25%, you have to list it and on the air. If you only had 5 side effects, you'd have to list every single side effect just to make up that time balance in the commercial. And that they're treating the symptoms and not the causes. Fair, maybe, versus natural approaches depicted as holistic, somehow more pure, root cause focused. And that's a false dichotomy. And it's one that in particular really hurts people who have type 2 diabetes. You have metformin, SGLT2 inhibitors, GLP-1 receptor agonists, and they're not just symptom management. SGLT2 inhibitors can improve blood pressure, and they can improve some of the so like if you already have heart disease, it can help prevent another event in those people. It can reduce heart failure hospitalizations is the one that SGLT2 inhibitors do. And then it's the cardiovascular events are what the GLP-1 receptor agonists have been proven to reduce and show some kidney protective or renoprotective effects there. So these are medications that can change the trajectory of diabetes. If they're started early while you still have functioning beta cells in the pancreas, they can help the trajectory of that. That's the scaffolding. You do need scaffolding as you build a building up. And for some people that are just, for whatever reason, no judgment, unable to make changes or unable to make changes that are strong enough to really shift things in a direction without medication, they're going to need that medication. And they really do address real biology in real stages of the disease. We talked about the 12 core defects, and a lot of these drugs work on different areas. And that's why the GLP-1 receptor agonists are such a highly recommended and prescribed class, because they work on 6 of those 12 core defects at least, So when you frame them as the enemy, which if you're trying to get someone to purchase your supplement is what you do, and then if you want to go natural, you have to avoid the unnatural. It's misinformation with real clinical consequences. And when a doctor does it, it carries the weight of that medical authority. And that combination can be very dangerous for somebody whose A1C is 9, 10, 11, or heaven forbid, higher, who decides to try a gut supplement instead of starting medication. Or in the case of another person that I talked to, went off all of her diabetes medications to do the Gundry stack and ends up promptly in the ER. And the cost of that
some
ER
effective
visit.
Marketing, I tell you what.
Mm-hmm. So now let's talk about more tools, because I want to focus more on giving hope, and real tools instead of like just here's the problem.
And all of these are in addition to eating more beans. That's
right. That's the eating more beans is the blanket or the gas bag underlying everything.
That's the foundation upon which all remission from diabetes is based. Yes.
Big beans.
Big beans.
Okay, so the answer is not like never trust any celebrity physician online. That would be faulty. That's not true. And I love that a lot of physicians, in response to the Dr. Oz's and the Dr. Gundrys of the world and some other names I'm not going to mention, but in response to that, they're really stepping up, and they're not making money from this. They're stepping up because it's the right thing to do, because someone has to speak out against this.
If your anecdotal story is accurate, a third of their time is probably being, and their time is, we've already established this. You got 20 minutes. It's a very limited window. If 6 to 7 minutes of that is just trying to negate disinformation,
Yeah, and they're tired of seeing people getting hurt, like genuinely hurt from these things. The least of which is their wallet, but that's a big one too. And we discussed in part 2 about how if you're paying $300 a month for a supplement, you're more than outpacing the cost of your Medicare deductible. And people complain about their Medicare deductible incessantly in their doctor visits. And a lot of people will miss their medication until they're on the other side of the donut hole or the coverage gap, as it used to be anyway. So it's a big problem. But there are excellent physicians, as I said, really trying to make evidence medicine available to the public and making the content and breaking it down into small digestible pieces, and really legitimate researchers making complex science accessible. Like I love this one cancer researcher who takes these concepts and breaks it down. Like she was talking about how some mRNA vaccines can really help your body attack cancer cells, which is so cool because normally they kind of sit in your body undetected and your body accepts them as part of your body when really they're fiends and they look similar. They got a little mask on. They look like your brother, but they're not your brother. They're an evil twin, So like your body learns to attack that. It's just really cool stuff that this person put into terms that I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like I can understand because I didn't take whatever that advanced genetic course was. And then I didn't go into cancer research. So I don't know, cancer supplement coming to you. No, I'm just kidding. But I love that people are out here doing this and making it better. So 5 questions you want to ask every time you see someone that is credentialed that you think, okay, this sounds like legit. This sounds like something good. Should I trust this person? So anytime you have a credentialed person that is recommending a supplement, a protocol, or product, you should run them through this. And I am not immune to this scrutiny. Feel free to run me through it as well, because this is important. Is the person selling what they're recommending? So in this case, yes, I am selling what I am recommending. I am.
Just to be clear, we're not selling beans.
No, we have no beans.
We have no beans to sell.
But I am selling a healthy lifestyle. I am selling remission from type 2 diabetes. That is the goal of what we do. But I'm also being realistic in who that's appropriate for and how to do it, and no supplements. It's about changing your mindset, heart set, your movement, your food, all your sleep patterns, all this stuff.
A lot of changes.
Yeah, lots of changes. But this is really the most important question and the easiest to check. If a doctor or someone recommends a supplement and then sells that supplement, there's your sign. Or is paid by a company that sells it, or owns the company that sells it. There's a commercial relationship and not a clinical one. So it doesn't automatically mean the recommendation is wrong, but it means the incentive structure has changed. The person is no longer just informing you. It's not just providing you with information. They're profiting from your purchase. And that changes the reliability of the information in ways that are well documented in conflict of interest research. So when your own doctor prescribes metformin, contrary to what people who want to sell you supplements and other things that I have seen online might say, your doctor does not get a kickback. They don't get any money from that. They get nothing from writing you metformin. They don't make money when you fill a prescription. But when a YouTube doctor sells you their berberine supplement, they do make money off of that. Every time you click buy now, that is a structural difference that matters. And so then question 2 is that claim supported by their field of research? So a cardiac surgeon talking about cardiac surgery, operating within their training. A cardiac surgeon talking about parasitic infections of the gut is not. Both statements come from a doctor, but they carry very different weight levels with that. So ask, what is this person's actual specialty? What is their training in? What did they publish on? And does the claim they're making fall within that domain? If not, treat it with the same skepticism you would apply to any specialist opinion. Interesting, but not necessarily authoritative. And then question 3, does the claim align with or contradict the major professional organization? So any professional organization is over doctors. Like for me, my professional organization is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So their major recommendations would be to eat a whole food, get lots of grains and fiber and limit saturated fat and move regularly. Like
5 to 9 servings of fruit and vegetables a day.
Yes, yes. They don't do a lot of exercise recommendations because that is not their realm. Even though, as a dietitian, we could tell people that movement matters, to get out and walk, and we can help people with goals and all of that. But I'm not going to do a very crafted, specific exercise plan for that patient with my dietetic credentials. I might help a friend move more or help somebody in that space, being a lifetime athlete and having overcome my own challenges. But I'm never going to say, I'm not going to rehab somebody from a hamstring tear or some surgical thing. I'm not going to help you ambulate to the bathroom after surgery and do that safely. That's not my area of expertise. So step 3 is does it align with or contradict those professional organizations? And I got off track a little. Yeah. Yes. So some professional organizations can be a little slower to update, but as a whole, even with scientific consensus shifting over time, do they align with their professional organization? If a single doctor is making claims that contradict the American Diabetes Association, the Endocrine Society, the American Heart Association, and the accumulated evidence from thousands of studies, the probability is that the single doctor is wrong, not that every major institution is in a conspiracy. I mean, come on, you have Dr. Gundry, who owns a supplement company, selling supplements, who is a pediatric cardiac surgeon trained, recommending something completely against the alignment of the American Diabetes Association, the American Heart Association. Like, which one has more credibility in that space? So these maverick narratives are seductive. They feel like revelation. We talked about this in the last podcast. But usually with medicine, the maverick is the wrong one. It is the science, while imperfect, because it's all about testing and retesting those hypotheses until you have theories, and then you've got a body of scientific evidence with something that then you go on that evidence. So then question, like I just did, are they acknowledging uncertainty and limitations? Are they saying, I am absolutely right, everybody else is wrong, you need to do this or you're going to be suffering, do they talk like that? Or do they say, this is the best evidence we have around this? This is what the studies support. This is what people who are living the longest are doing. This, are they using that clinical evidence, or are they kind of almost bullying you into something? Like, are they speaking in too much certainty? Like, for example, lectins are destroying your gut. As a dietitian, I would never say, although I could find plenty of clinical evidence to support highly processed foods are destroying your gut. But I wouldn't say that. I could say that they...
Without doing a food inventory for that individual, the accuracy of that statement is in question. I guess I would say. Right.
It might be 90% accurate, but it's not fully accurate. And even then...
Hey, I only eat meat and ferments. There's no way that lectins are destroying my gut.
Here's another one. This supplement reverses inflammation. Doctors are missing this. So that absence of uncertainty is what you're looking for. If you're fully certain, that's a red flag. then does the core biology check out? So we talked about this question in part 2, but we're going to talk about it here as well. When a doctor recommends a supplement for diabetes, ask, does it meaningfully affect my bottom line? Does it meaningfully move that A1C needle? Does it affect hepatic glucose output, skeletal muscle glucose disposal, visceral fat accumulation, insulin signaling? Does it affect any of those? If the doctor can't explain the mechanism in terms of actual diabetes pathophysiology, if instead they talk about toxins or lectins or parasites or speak about inflammation in vague terms without really specifying the pathway, and that this is going to do something with the visceral fat, but it needs to be very, very specific. What is it going to do with the visceral fat? Then it's not grounded in true biology of the condition, regardless of the credentials. All right. So they should have protected. You doctors are to protect their patient. They are here to heal, and doctors do that, every day in hospitals and every day in clinics around the world. Doctors are keeping patients alive and healing and nurturing and giving life-saving medications and life-saving recommendations. And so there's this argument that physicians are only peddling the medication. What I see happening that feels more true to me is that doctors are recommending nutrition and lifestyle changes, but they're not necessarily having the time to get into the how of it. And then when the person doesn't take the initiative to work on the how and to make the changes, then it has progressed to a degree that medications are then necessary. So it's like the doctor is the architect. They lay out the structural plan, but unless you go hire people or unless you do something to change the different levers, again, you're still in the problem.
Coming from a construction background,
stop.
I would say that if any architect, there's still going to be a detail, on how that foundation is to be put together.
Yeah.
And that really is the missing piece, because it is very easy to prescribe a medicine. It is very difficult to prescribe a movement and a complete movement and dietary plan that addresses all of the list of things that an individual either has access to or likes, all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
And that is truthfully the fundamental foundation of any kind of lifestyle change. If you're not modifying your physical output of activity and your physical input of foods, both from a quantity and quality nutritional standpoint, everything else is not going to not going to work. It's not going to reverse the disease.
Yeah. So it was interesting. I was training someone today on an automated insulin delivery system, and we were talking about how to give insulin to cover the food that she eats. And she was like, if I have to do this, I'm not doing it. Do I have to do this every time? If I have to do it, forget it. I'm not doing it. And so when you're pressed for time, you might say, well, you have to do it. I told you to, end of story. That's not going to work. She's going to come back and not have done anything because she told you she wasn't. She didn't do it, So for this individual, her A1C hovering around 11 or 12. So that's not the fight for today. The fight for today is not to get her to bolus every time before she eats, not on this particular day for this individual person. For her, it was like, no, you don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. I'm going to recommend that you do, but it's your life to live as you choose. And I can tell you that if you don't give this insulin before you eat, you'll probably be in range 45 to 50% of the time. We'll have a 70 to 180 blood sugar 45 to 50% of the time. For her, that's a huge win from where she was. Huge win. That'll take her from a 12 A1C probably to like an 8.5 or 9. That's a win. But then if I were to see her again, it would be, okay, what can we do now? And one thing I did show her when she came in, she happened to have had really good blood sugar at that time. So what the automated insulin delivery system recommended for her blood sugar was like 0.3 units of insulin, almost nothing. But then when she put in a custom food there, when she put in 45 grams of carbs, it recommended 15 units. So she saw how much insulin she needed for the food, that it wasn't always about the blood sugar. So she learned something, and that could affect her behavior in the future. So it's just about planting the small seeds of change and working with each individual person. And that kind of change takes time, and really understanding where that person is and what is better every single time. And so you have this idea of responsible medicine, and unfortunately, some use the platform that they have to perform science and to sell supplements. I'm not necessarily saying that they, as an individual, are evil. I would say they're quite misguided. And I think that, as we talked before, that those incentive structures of media, fame, and commerce can distort judgment over time. Like, it's just a little bit, and then it move a little, just the same as we talk about incremental habit changes. I think you can incrementally get to some place where the old you wouldn't recognize where you are anymore. But the person who with type 2 diabetes, who watched a Gundry ad at midnight, spent $200 on a gut protocol instead of calling their endocrinologist the next morning, the impact is the same, regardless of if that was the intent that caused harm. They trusted a doctor, and the doctor sold them something, and that something didn't change their A1C 1 iota. And that's going to affect their long-term outcomes with this disease. And that makes me really sad. Makes me angry, but I know underneath that is sadness, because they've leveraged that trust commercially. So what to carry out of this episode is really that the white coat doesn't necessarily mean that's the message. It's part of the reason I stepped out of the scrubs today.
How about the white coat on the screen doesn't necessarily mean so much. Please listen to your doctor. Yes. The credentials tell you that somebody completed training, but they don't tell you that every word out of their mouth is reliable. And I will tell you, every word out of my mouth is not reliable. Don't apply a tourniquet to your neck. What I was saying, though, is a bleeding neck problem. And then I shifted to tourniquet in my mind, but I just didn't tell you. It will stop the bleeding.
It will stop the bleeding. Yes. So what I want you to do is to trust your doctor, your actual doctor. I want you to have a relationship with your doctor. I want you to be truthful to your doctor, the one who knows your labs and your history and your medications, over any doctor or anyone you'll see on a screen. And I hope that, you trust your doctor enough that you can have conversations with them about things that you've heard on here, but not in a Dr. Oz says kind of way. Like, just say, I'm curious about this that I heard. But if your actual doctor isn't giving you enough time, enough explanation, enough respect, the answer is to find a better doctor, not to replace that relationship with an online or YouTube personality of a doctor.
So what are we talking about in part 4?
We're going to bring it all home. It's about, like, what does move the needle? Why would you do something different besides buying a supplement? Why, what is going on with the pathophysiology in greater detail that makes the supplements not work to their fullest? Like, why is it not ever going to be enough to fix it?
Okay. All right. Well, this has been yet another episode of the Diabetes Podcast.
Woohoo.
Thanks for listening to the Diabetes Podcast. If this helps you spot the playbook and protect your time, health, and wallet, please subscribe and leave a comment or a review. Need additional support or have a question? Email us at support@empowereddiabetes.com. Be sure to stay tuned for part 4 of the Grift, where we'll reveal the evidence-based levers that truly change outcomes for type 2 and prediabetes, and how to put them to work in daily life. Until next time, take courage. You can do this, and we can help.